Are you excited? I'm excited. It's the most wonderful time of the year. We are only a week away from the biggest night in musical theater. The 70th annual Tony Awards are this Sunday, and there are a whopping 14 different musicals up for awards this year, so buckle up. We got a lot to talk about.
You're watching Musical Theater MASH.
All right, let's get the big hitter out of the way first. Hamilton, as if you already didn't know, is the revolutionary new musical that has taken the nation and the world by storm, all puns intended. The show chronicles the life and times of American founding father Alexander Hamilton with a flavor and a style that, frankly, Broadway has never seen before. Lin-Manuel Miranda's beautiful mixing of rap and hip-hop and honest-to-goodness show tunes is something that I think I might spend the rest of my life trying to adequately describe. Hamilton has broken new records by being the most nominated production ever in Tony Awards history. Its 16 nominations have beaten the producers and Billy Elliott's records of 15 nominations. And if it wins every category it's nominated, which it just might, it'll set a new record for most Tony wins for a production. 13 wins beating out the producers' 12. Hamilton has nominations in literally every category it can, with 2 noms in leading actor and 3 in featured actor. And, of course, it's nominated for Best Musical. And you can bet your bayonets that it'll be taking home quite a few of those awards. The cast album is available right now, and if you haven't listened to it, then you're wrong. Shuffle Along, or The Making of the Musical Sensation of 1921 and All That Followed, is an interesting study in Tony nomination classification. Despite having some of its book and most all of its music and lyrics taken from the original 1921 review Shuffle Along, this newly imagined retelling of both the original show and its creation and impact has landed it in new musical territory instead of in revival land. The original Shuffle Along is a somewhat forgotten watershed moment in African American performance history. A wildly popular musical in its time and entirely produced, written, and performed by African Americans, Shuffle Along paved the way for black performers and artists both on Broadway and in America. The new Shuffle Along, the one with the long title, both showcases most of the original show, and a new book by director George C. Wolfe attempts to encapsulate the history and importance of the original production. Also, there's dancing. A lot of dancing. Mostly tap. Shuffle Along, or The Making of the Musical Sensation of 1921 and All That Followed, is up for 10 awards, including Best Musical. No cast recording has been announced yet. Next on the list is Bright Star, the Bluegrass musical, with score by Steve Martin and Eddie Brickell. Did I mention it's a bluegrass musical?
Look, you got the feel, you got the face of true love, you got the charm, you got appeal, I got to let you go.
Set in North Carolina in both 1920 and the mid-1940s, the musical is pretty, light, and a little predictable. In the 40s, Billy, a young soldier-turned-writer, is trying to get his stories published and charms Alice, the successful editor, who in turn flashes back to the events in her younger years in the 20s. There's a fair share of implied connections and time-traveling musicality between the two. Love stories, disapproving parents, and all the bluegrass country charm that goes with it. The music in this show very much shines. I am still making my way through the cast album, but there are some pretty catchy tunes in there. The plot, it's okay. Bright Star is nominated for 5 awards, and you can get the cast album right now. And here's one I've prepared earlier. It's a pie joke. Get it? No? Waitress the Musical, based on the 2007 film, stars the fabulous Jessie Mueller, aka Carole King, now doing her best Sarah Bareilles impression. I mean, she could probably make a career out of imitating singer-songwriters in Broadway musicals. Watch out, Madonna.
The day starts like the rest we've seen, another carbon copy of an old routine. Days keep coming.
enough to chew.
The musical, like the movie, tells the story of a small-town pie-making waitress stuck in a loveless marriage who unexpectedly falls in love with her gynecologist. But this time with a beautiful score by Sarah Bareilles. It's fun and witty and touching and just a nice, good show. And all the reviews are filled with pie puns, so there's that. Waitress is up for 4 awards, and the concept album is available now. The cast album comes out on June 10th. School of Rock the Musical is Andrew Lloyd Webber's attempt to do what Matilda did. It's the movie. It's exactly the same, except now it's on stage and has lazy lyrics. I mean, the kid musicians are great. Alex Brightman, aka Jack Black, is great, and, well, that's all I really have to say. School of Rock is up for 4 awards, and if you really want to, you can listen to the cast album right now. And those are the Best Musical nominations. Now, there's a few other loose ends to wrap up in new musical land. American Psycho has already closed after a relatively short run. Based on the movie and scored with leftover Duncan Sheik songs, the musical is sloppy, both in its gory stage blood and in its construction. Nominated for 2 technical awards and with no Broadway cast recording in sight, you can still enjoy Matt Smith on the West End album. On Your Feet, the story of Emilio and Gloria Estefan is what you'd get if you combined the most frustrating parts of Beautiful, the Carole King musical, and Mamma Mia, a gay fantasia. The songs are catchy, but that's just because they're Gloria Estefan songs. The book is not so catchy. It's nominated for Best Choreography, and there's a live cast album that you can listen to right now. A real oddity and Seth Rudetsky's pet project for the past few years, Disaster is a campy take on 70s disaster movies. Earthquakes, floods, killer bees, you get the idea. It is an absurdly campy jukebox musical parody that is certainly not aiming for any Pulitzers. Still, where else can something like that find a home but on Broadway? It's got 1 nomination for Featured Actress, and the cast album comes out in September. And last on the list of new musicals is the short-lived yet still intriguing Tuck Everlasting. Opened and closed in just a little more than a month, the musical is based on the children's book of the same name about a, spoiler alert, immortal family in late 1800s New Hampshire. It's just kid-friendly enough to not have been commercially viable and closed last month. It's up for 1 award, and the cast album comes out on June 10th. And that's it for the new stuff. 9 new musicals premiered on Broadway this season. 9! That's huge. Now, let's talk about the revivals. First up is a revival of The Color Purple, brought over from its West End run in 2013, and it is fabulous. It is just as moving and compelling as the original, but this time in that wonderful, pared-down John Doyle style that just lets you zoom in on the characters and the songs and the story. It's the 40-year-long epic journey of African-American women in Georgia, as told variously through letters written to God. And this new production is as soulful and moving as ever. The Color Purple is up for 4 awards, including Best Revival, and the cast album is available right now. Next on the revival list is the 5th, that's right, 5th revival of Fiddler on the Roof that has made it to Broadway. This iconic tale of Tevye the Milkman and his daughters is as celebratory and moving as ever. Of note, this revival is the first not to contain Jerome Robbins' original choreography, long considered to be part and parcel with the show. Hofish Schechter, the choreographer, adds a new flair to what is often a very traditional show. Fiddler has 3 nominations, including Best Revival, and the album is available right now. Deaf West's revival of Spring Awakening may have closed back in January, but we'll still be hearing the echo of the overwhelmingly positive reviews well into the summer.
Mama who bore me, Mama the angels, no sleep in heaven or Bethlehem.
If you somehow avoided coverage of this production, this revival reimagined the original Spring Awakening musical with both hearing and non-hearing actors and presented it both in spoken English and ASL. In addition to breaking barriers on Broadway and continuing the discussion of just who we should be representing on stage, it was also just a damn good production. A quick note here, there's a Kickstarter that Deaf West is now running to fund their performance on the Tony Awards. Last I checked, it's a little more than halfway there, so if you're in a place to help them out, you totally should. Spring Awakening is up for 3 awards, including Best Musical, and no cast album has been announced. She Loves Me is maybe the most traditional musical up for awards this season. Now, unless you're a diehard like me, you may have never listened to the show before, but it's basically the plot of the movie You've Got Mail, but set in a 1930s perfume shop.
He brought me ice cream, vanilla ice cream. Imagine that ice cream, and for the first time we were together without a smile.
It's a 1960s musical, it's a golden oldie, it's got quaint songs, a love story, it's just a nice, light evening at the theater. She Loves Me is up for 8 awards, including Best Revival, and a recording is due out on June 10th. And those are the nominees for Best Revival of a Musical. The only loose end we have to tie up is the revival of Dames at Sea. It was just kind of a ho-hum revival with 1 nomination for Best Choreography. Whew! Hopefully, that helps you sort through some of the 14 musicals nominated for awards this year. There's also a bunch of plays nominated, obviously. That's not quite my bailiwick, but there's 2 Arthur Miller shows, Laurie Metcalf in Misery, Noises Off, Eugene O'Neill. There's a bunch of good stuff. You'll hear about that too. All through this week, I will be making my way through as many of the cast albums as possible for more detailed show of the day breakdowns, so get hyped for that. And then, of course, follow me on my Twitter at Musical Mash for your own personal Tony's watch party on Sunday at 8/7 Central. I'll see you all then.